on the phone. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the program from Rolling Stone magazine, the author of multiple New York Times bestsellers, of course, which we will note on Majority.fm, Matt Taibbi. Hello, Matt.
How's it going, Sam? What's new, man?
It's going good. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Sorry, a little bit low, but we've just turned up our volume.
Okay.
So, you know, just the subtitle of your piece, your last piece, I guess in April's issue of Rolling Stone, caught my eye. The Illuminati were amateurs. Everything is rigged. The biggest price fixing scandal ever. Seems like we have a new one of these every couple of months now.
I know. Yeah, that's actually been kind of a problem for us editorially because we keep having these stories that are the biggest whatever ever, and I mean, it's not necessarily that we're wrong. It's just that one comes after the other. I mean, Libor was probably the biggest antitrust case ever, and HSBC probably was the biggest money laundering case ever. And what do you do? I mean, it's just
you got the same problem that like Glenn Beck and Alex Jones have. I mean, every day they're breaking. They're like in a competition. Like this is going to be the biggest story ever. There's a Saudi.
Right.
They haven't. But it ties in because you mentioned the Illuminati were amateurs, and on some level this theme of everything is sort of rigged, that the elite control things. In some ways, the real story is obscured by those conspiracies because this stuff is right out there, and it's I don't know. It's sort of the whole we're living in such like a surreal time. It seems to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This and I agree with you that all of the other conspiracy theories are kind of ironically like camouflage for this other stuff that's really, it's right out in the open. It's not like they're having hidden meetings in back in masonry headquarters in the Gestad or someplace like that. It's this stuff is right out in the open for anybody to see. It's boring, and it comes cloaked in all this financial verbiage, and so people don't want to fight their way through it because it's not a sexy cloak and dagger or Da Vinci Code kind of story. It's a boring story about numbers and computer screens, and so it's it's just a strange confluence of fake conspiracy theories and then real conspiracies.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the sort of that aspect of it in a bit. Just sort of this notion that that there is sort of some measure of exhaustion about these stories because but I want to get to that part of it after we talk about this because this is, I mean, we spoke to you about the Libor scandal, which I think hopefully everybody in this audience is aware of at this point. But give us an update, because what really stunned me early, when we talked about the Libor stuff early on, we're like, well, the government's not going to do anything. To the extent that they do, it's just going to be, the cost of doing business for these guys. Oh, we may have made, billions on this, and so if we got to kick back a couple of billion or a couple of million, that's just like that's like office supplies costs.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
But what sort of stunned me was this story, and then we assumed what we're going to see is a lot of private cases that are being brought, just like we're seeing on the mortgage and the security side. And then you tell the story of a case in March, and just in terms of Libor, just catch us up on what happened on the governmental side, who is being investigated, and then let's go into this case.
So far on the investigative side, there have been 3 settlements so far. The first one was with Barclays last year, and the British and American regulators ended up collecting something like a $460 million settlement. Then came UBS, the Swiss bank, and they paid a settlement of, I think it was about $1.5 billion. And then there was the Royal Bank.
That's $1.5 billion. That's just basically a good week at one of their Mexican branches, right? Of money laundering money.
Well, yeah, no, actually, you're thinking of HSBC.
Oh, sorry.
But you're right. I mean, that's roughly the same. I mean, it's a small slice of their yearly profits. So it's not a crippling settlement. In most of these cases, the banks have actually set aside much larger sums of money to pay off these settlements. So they know it's coming, and it's not a crippling amount of money. In fact, that's part of the calculation, as I understand it, is that they are trying to get an amount of money that will not put the bank out of business or will not interrupt its normal flow of operations.
Yeah, so, I want to get to that collateral consequences thing in a bit, but let's go through. So they're being investigated. They're getting basically a slap on the wrist in terms of dollar amounts. So
right, and just to back up there, here's the interesting thing about that. When Barclays settled last year, which was in April or March, most of the people who are regulators or class action lawyers expected that Barclays would be rolled up into more serious cases for other actors in this whole scandal, because that's the point of settling first, is that you get a better deal, but then you also have to roll on everybody else. But that's not what happened. Their settlement turned out to be just like the template for everybody else's settlement. So instead of the usual way that these things work, like in a drug case where the first guy gets the best deal and then everybody else goes to jail, it's just everybody got the same deal. So
this is like we've got the little fish, and what we're going to do is we're going to approach the big fish, and then basically say you're going to get the same situation as the little fish.
Right. Exactly. So there's going to be no headline case where they rouse somebody out of bed and throw them in the clink for it. It's going to be a whole bunch of these settlements. There may be a couple of small players who will actually be criminally charged, but they're not in the United States yet. And no companies will be criminally charged here in the States.
Oh, phew. Well, I would hate anybody to lose their jobs. And so so we go. So cut to March. We're in a district court, I believe it was was it in Brooklyn, or it's maybe in
Manhattan? I think it was Brooklyn. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was in New York somewhere. Yeah.
And so tell us what happens.
So there was a major private class action case in the Libor case, and if you look at the list of plaintiffs, it's basically like every town and city in America. They're all these people who had Libor-based investments that they feel that they lost money on because of manipulation of Libor. Of course, that's a little bit problematic because it's hard to calculate the damage without knowing exactly how much they pushed the rates one way or the other. But certainly people who had Libor-based investments did not earn as much as they would have, or at least the number wasn't the same as it would have been without the manipulation. We know that for sure. So there should have been some kind of case. It should have gone to the jury. But the banks filed a routine motion to dismiss, and it was sort of based on a really interesting idea. The idea was that the lawsuit was for anti-competitive behavior, antitrust behavior, and their contention was that submitting Libor was not a competitive process. So while these people may have been deceived about what they thought Libor was or should have been, and maybe there was a fraud argument to be made, it wasn't an antitrust case. And the judge bought this argument and basically tossed the whole case, and now it's dismissed. So there's no more big private Libor case left. That was the big one, unless something really crazy happens in terms of an appeal. That case is gone.
All right, so let's just figure this out for a second here. So you have essentially these what is it, like I guess a dozen, 16 banks that voluntarily report on what their lending rates are, and that forms the basis of a rate in which everything else, or not everything else, but a lot of other financial products are based upon. And
Yeah,
so
mortgages, credit cards, swaps, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
So the argument from the defense here is that, well, Bank A and Bank B there was never a notion that they were competing against each other in this
Right.
process. They were just reporting on what their bank rates are, and this process was just used to form basically an aggregate or an average, more or less, of what that rate is.
Right. Right. But this is just semantics because obviously what they were supposed to be reporting was a competitive process. So, when you're reporting on what the rates are and what your borrowing costs are, it's supposed to be you're reporting on what the rate is in a competitive market, like how much it would cost for your bank to borrow in a competitive free market. So yes, technically they're not competing in delivering the information to the Libor committee. I mean, but they are competing in terms of, how much it costs to borrow in the market. So it was like a leprechaun trick. I mean, it's hard. This is hard to explain on the radio, but it's literally just a bunch of wordsmithing to try to make the issue go away, and it worked. I mean, it's kind of brilliant, actually.
But I mean, wasn't there a notion that when it became clear? Well, I mean, look, who knows when it became clear that this was rigging was going on, but that literally the Bank of England was basically saying to people who weren't sort of fudging their numbers enough, you should fudge your numbers.
That did apparently happen in 2008. Yeah.
But I mean, so why, if there's no dynamic, I mean, because if they're saying it's not a competitive process, right? They're basically saying there's no relationship between Bank A and Bank B that are submitting their numbers in that part of the process. Then why would they feel pressured to change their numbers based upon what other banks are doing?
Well, that's true. Yeah. No, I mean that, and that does make sense. Look, there were two different types of manipulation that went on. There was kind of this group manipulation where everybody was sort of trying to make LIBOR look lower so that they would all look better and look healthier, and that's what the Bank of England wanted. They wanted the banks to keep LIBOR low so that nobody would freak out and think that borrowing rates were through the roof because there was a lack of confidence in the market, and so that was like genuine collusion. I mean, that was sort of pure anti-competitive behavior. And then there was the other kind where it was just some schmo in a company, some trader who would tell the LIBOR submitter that he wanted a lower number that day because he was holding, swaps or whatever it was, and he would win on the deal if LIBOR was lower that day. So sometimes it wasn't necessarily a bunch of people working in concert. Sometimes it was just an individual bank that was fudging the numbers all by itself. So there was sort of an argument there, but still, it's still anti-competitive behavior to fake the numbers.
Let me just, anyway. I want to read I want to quote from the exchange that you reprinted in your piece between a trader and someone who was responsible for submitting the LIBOR, who was presumably trying to front run or something like this, right?
Right.
And in other words, they're going to fudge what their numbers are so they can get in and play the spread between what their reported numbers and what the real numbers are ultimately going to be. This is the Swiss franc trader. This is done through, I guess, IM or email or something.
Yeah. It's like an IM.
Can you put in 6 million Swiss 6M 6 month Swiss LIBOR in low, please? And then the primary submitter says, "What's it worth?" And the Swiss franc trader says, "I've got some sushi rolls from yesterday?" ? And the primary submitter says, okay, low 6 month, just for you. And the Swiss franc trader says, woohoo, that'd be awesome. I mean, this is just, it's jaw dropping.
Yeah, no, it's totally sociopathic. I mean, think about it. I mean, these two yahoos are like monkeying around with the DNA of the entire world financial system for like day-old sushi. I mean, it's
yes, I imagine there was really no
crazy
transfer of sushi at that point, too. It was basically the guy's way of saying, like, hey, I don't know. I won't come over and take a crap on your desk tomorrow. And the guy says, all right, well, in that case, you know, I mean, it's offered you nothing. It's just like, just do me a favor. And
right.
the guy's like, all right, whatever. I mean, it's that sort of whimsical, which is just sort of stunning because it literally affects a $500 trillion?
Yeah, $500 trillion worth of financial products. You know, the estimates are there. You see some papers say 300 trillion, others say 800 trillion. The EU says it's 500 trillion. So pick a number right in the middle, but it's a huge amount of money. I mean, because everybody is affected by LIBOR. Even people who don't hold LIBOR-based instruments are still affected by it. If you think about it, because these benchmarks affect the value of different currencies versus each other. So if you have a bank account in dollars and they're monkeying around with the Swiss franc, your dollars might suddenly be worth less than the Swiss franc, you know, by a fraction or more than a fraction. So if you have money at all, this stuff affected you,
right.
Which is crazy.
Crazy. And so let's talk also now about Icap. Who is this firm Icap, and what do they do, and why are they being investigated?
So they're a broker for interest rate swaps. So if you're a bank and you want to buy or sell interest rate swaps, this is the major brokerage through which you do those deals. Interest rate swaps are that's another huge market. I think the number we quoted was $379 trillion market. But they're typically a tool that companies and towns and cities and countries use to manage their debt. So the most common situation is if a town has a bunch of variable rate bond issue, and they want to know exactly how much they're going to owe in the future, rather than pay a floating rate at the rate at which they borrowed. They will pay a bank to swap that debt into a fixed rate, and that's what that swap is. It's like a deal between two parties. One side wants to get a fixed interest rate. The other side is going to risk the variable rate. So it's a kind of contract.
It's the functional equivalent of me going to a mortgage broker and saying, I got this adjustable rate mortgage 3 or 4 years ago. I'm a little bit worried about what's going to happen with interest rates in the next couple of years, so I'm going to switch to my 30-year mortgage now, and then he basically switches those deals. Somebody buys the other mortgage, essentially.
Right, and then the whole trick here from the bank side is, we want to look at our research about what interest rates are, and we'll calculate what the cost of your loan for the next 10 years is, and then we'll try to figure out a number that's just higher than that, so that we make a nice sizable profit on it. So that's where you make money on interest rate swaps, is sort of the difference between the spread between what the real changes in rates are and how much you're going to offer your client. And so this is sort of an opaque market, and like LIBOR, the prices of interest rate swaps are based on like a bench rate, which they call ISDAFIX. And so there's an investigation now into ISDAFIX that's essentially identical to the LIBOR investigation, where
it's convenient that they've already named it.
Right, the fix. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So So yeah, they are apparently looking at whether or not there are, I think it's 16 banks that are involved in this one or 15 banks, many of them the same ones involved with the Libor panel, whether they're manipulating that benchmark as well. So that's part of the investigation, and it's just another example of how this sort of financial infrastructure is unregulated or self-regulated, and we have to rely on them to give us numbers when they have an incentive to game them.
How would we be affected by the benchmark rate for rate swaps?
So let's say your town wants to swap out its debt, and it buys a swap from Goldman Sachs or from J.P. Morgan Chase or whoever, and instead of paying $100 million over the next 10 years, it ends up paying $120 million, and so that $20 million is going to come from somewhere. It's either going to be from our tax dollars, or they're going to cut services or whatever. That's an example of where it could come from. For a company, it would be a more direct hit. They, instead of paying X rate to swap out their loans and their debt exposure, they might pay a higher rate. And of course, there might be some people who benefit from this as well, but typically the banks do this because they're on the other side of the deal, and if they are doing it, they're probably doing it to rig the numbers in their favor.
Right, as opposed to we rigged it for our favor last month. This month we give back some. They probably don't say that.
No.
So, I mean, this is really stunning, because the implication here is that in any financial system where you have voluntary reporting, that, I mean, look, if they're lying about the Libor, the rates that constitute Libor, if they're lying about the rates that constitute the fix, there's no reason to believe that wherever we see any type of voluntary reporting, that they're not lying.
Right, and the problem with that is that these kinds of benchmarks exist pretty much everywhere in the financial system. So whether it's gold or silver, certain kinds of commodities, jet fuel, heating oil, except for a very few places in the financial system where you have like real-time, real data. Most of these systems are built around voluntary reporting benchmarks. So prices, as one source said to me, in most places you don't have prices except by a bunch of guys getting together, and that's sort of the problem, is that you just never know what's real and what's not, and it's kind of creepy to think about.
It's creepy, and then the question comes to, when we talk about sort of like well, there's two things. I mean, one. It seems to me that there's two ways that you can approach this in terms of why it's wrong. One is there's sort of some notion of rule of law, right? I mean, presumably, if these banks, even though they don't seem to have any civil liability, according to this judge in the Southern District of New York,
right.
They did settle with the Justice Department, and albeit for, the cost of new ink in their copiers, essentially.
Right.
But there must have been some. I mean, there must be some grounds, some legal issue here. So it's just breaking the law on some level for them to be lying about this stuff. The other thing is that, it seems to me that there's now this sort of attitude that everybody has to buy into so that they don't freak out that, look, most of this stuff is just a black box. And it really doesn't matter what comes out the other side. If they're skimming or lying and they're doing it 10 or 15% of the time, that's what they're doing. You know, my dad had a parking lot in Worcester, and he would always say to me, like, I know the guy's taking 10%, you know, the guy is working there, but whatever, you know, I know he's taking 10. If he takes more, then I start to worry, but he's only taking 10. So, you know, I get, at
Right.
least it's consistent. That seems to be the theory that, that people are operating on. It's like, yeah, it's rigged, but they seem to basically maintain the rigging in a very consistent and polite manner.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the rationale that everybody that in fact when I covered another one of these rigging scandals last year, which involved the rigging of municipal bond service auctions, which is like an incredibly boring thing, but yeah, the lawyers for the defense in that case, their essential argument was, we're the experts. When you call a plumber to come to your house and to do a job on your house, and he gives you a bill for how much it costs, you don't know how much that job was really worth. You have to rely on him to tell you what the cost was. And so therefore, if we tell you that the cost of this is X, then that's what the cost is, because we're the experts. And so that's kind of the argument with all this stuff. It's like, well, you know, if gold is X price, you don't know any better. We do. And so, or if interest rates are this price, well, that's what it is, and just live with it. I mean, that's kind of the mentality. And again, it's a subtle, hard thing to explain to people, but it's incredibly galling that they come up with this attitude, and they really do believe it, that's the case.
Well, it's interesting because what it really does in many respects is, I mean, look, you know, what is the price of gold? Well, you know, it's worth whatever people are willing to pay for it. And
Right.
what we're seeing in this instance is just like, well, it's worth whatever people are paying for it, but it's really not worth that. It's worth what everybody assumes other people are claiming to pay for it at that point.
Right.
And
Right.
it's basically the one thing that, you know, I walk away from this is that it puts complete lie to the fallacy of a true market in any context, because this is not in any way. You know, I guess it's, well, people will pay what they will pay for it. Yes. And maybe they'll pay more if they're told that other people, whether it's true or not, are paying more for it. You know, next door, whatever, you know, I mean, it's
Right. No. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Look, the example I always used to like to use is when I lived in Moscow, and I wanted to go buy a watermelon on the street. If I went out anywhere in the city on any given day and went to go buy a watermelon, it would be the same price everywhere in the city, because all the different mafia groups got together every morning and they decided what the price of watermelon was going to be that day. Now, would I pay that price? Yeah, absolutely. But if it was a real free market, if there were people who were allowed to sell it for less, could I have gotten that watermelon for less? Yeah, but it's not. So in one sense, yes, the price is what the market will bear, because I'm going to pay that cost. But on the other sense, it's not a real free market, because the prices could have been lower, and that's kind of the same situation. It's an oversimplified look at this. But if you're getting together and you're colluding so that everybody is reporting a certain price, then we're not seeing the real price.
I mean, this is, I mean, the you know, I guess another sort of takeaway from this is that we're just dealing with a huge cartel, and
Right.
there just seems to be massive antitrust issues here that we will never ever get to. And this takes us to, you know, the collateral consequences. You noted in your piece that Lanny Brewer went back, I think, to Covington, whatever his white
Covington Burling, yeah.
which is where he from whence he came, as did Holder, working on these cases. On the other side of these cases, although I'm not convinced he was working on a different side when he was at the Department of Justice. But this concept of collateral consequences, and it's basically just just to outline that for us, because I mean, we've seen it in the context of the whole mortgage fraud, and it really just seems to cut across everything.
Yeah, no, it was intended to cut across everything. It's funny. This whole idea dates back a really long time. Eric Holder actually wrote a memo about this back when he was in the Clinton White House in the Justice Department, and it was just sort of a position paper, and it's known now as the quote-unquote Holder memo. The whole idea was, what do we do when we have a big company that employs a lot of people that gets itself into trouble? If we are worried about innocent people losing their jobs if we charge the company criminally, do we have other options? And his answer was, yes, we do. We can do other things. We can fine them. We can pursue deferred prosecution agreements. We can do things beyond just charging them criminally. And it didn't catch on right away. It really caught on after the Arthur Andersen debacle, when they were going to charge that company criminally, and it went up in smoke, and 28,000 jobs were lost. And from that point forward, the Justice Department was really shy about charging companies criminally, and not just companies, but individuals at companies, because of this supposed rationale that there's collateral damage if we do it, that innocent people are going to suffer, meaning people who have jobs at these companies, which makes a little bit of sense, but not completely. You can see why they wouldn't charge a company criminally, but why not individuals? Why not these traders who are monkeying with world rates for sushi? That's not going to have collateral consequences.
Well,
so they've started to conflate things, I think, is what's happening.
Yeah, and if you mug somebody on the street and you go to jail, your family's going to suffer. But we don't see that concept of collateral consequences in any other field other than those that protect sort of these corporate entities. I mean, it's also, I think what we're seeing now is sort of the implications of that collateral consequences doctrine in terms of preventing people from sort of re-engaging in these acts. I mean, I had David Dayen on the other day. I mean, mortgage companies are doing the exact same thing that they just settled with the government for doing, presumably, right. And they're not. They're just. We're seeing the banks do the same type of mortgage fraud. And there seems to be. I mean, we talk about moral hazard. This is just. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah. No. And again, you're right. And it's not just. The financial industry. Well, last year there were 3 massive settlements in the big pharma industry for a variety of misdeeds. One was GlaxoSmithKline, then there was Abbott, and there was a third one. I can't remember which one it was, but they all settled for huge amounts of money, and there were no criminal penalties. And this is like the new template for how we deal with big politically influential corporate wrongdoers. And the problem is that the problem doesn't happen in the first time when they get caught. The real problem comes out, as you said, in the second time when they violate it again. Well, what do? You can't just do it again because you can't have because it's supposed to. The whole idea is that this first non-criminal action is supposed to be like a warning, but they're not taking that next step, and so it's becoming a sort of institutionalized cost of doing business thing where everybody knows that nobody goes to jail, and so there's no disincentive to wrongdoing at all.
What do you think? I mean, I mean, it's impossible to get into the minds of people like Holder and those people who sort of subscribe to this theory. And just for a moment, let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they actually think they're doing something. I mean, do they think that it's because look, it doesn't seem to me that if nobody investigated, if the CTFC was not investigating ISDAFix, that there would be really significantly more outcry than there is now. You know what I mean? If they were just like,
Oh, right, yeah.
I mean, so are they even investigating it as just a sort of like way of like, we've got to put some window dressing on this? I mean,
Well, okay. I have the answer to that is I think there's a lot of back and forth within all these different regulating agencies and within the Justice Department. You still have real cops working in all of these places, and a lot of them are really aggressive and they want to do these cases. And I think even a lot of times the prosecutors who are in charge of these cases, they really want to do these cases, but there are other factors. They're not getting as many resources as they could have beforehand. It's incredibly difficult to pursue these cases because you have a well-funded adversary who will string it out forever, and you're under a lot of pressure internally to get convictions. So just in terms of allocation of resources, it doesn't always make sense to go after these guys. And so they start internalizing all these reasons why not to go forward. And by the time they've worked it all out in their heads, it makes sense to them. Let's just take a lot of money, call it a victory, and then move on, and we'll justify it on the grounds that, hey, we're doing the best that we can, we got something, and we're not costing any jobs, which makes sense, except in the context of what happens to everybody else in the rest of America when they get charged with a crime. Because, other people go to a real jail for doing things a lot less serious. And I think they're out of touch with that. I think that's the problem.
This is one of those cases where the guy sitting in the office knows that his boss is never going to come down and say, shame on you for only getting $400 million from this bank, as opposed to sending him to jail. They're going to say, good luck, congratulations, whereas they know that they're never going to hear, other than Matt Taibbi, who's going to hold me to account for just doing $400 million.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously and I've met some of these people. There are some people who work in these offices who are like old school, just hate crooks of all stripes kinds of detectives and investigators. And when they see these rich guys doing X, Y, and Z, there are people in there who just have a burning desire to put handcuffs on them and throw them in jail. And those people are upset, but they're not the decision makers. Right. And the higher ranks of the Justice Department and these regulating agencies are not peopled by people like that. They're run by people like Mary Jo White and Bob Khuzami and other people who worked as defense lawyers for these same companies. So they have a tendency to sympathize much more with this particular kind of defendant as opposed to your drug dealer or your car thief or whoever who doesn't get any sympathy at all and just gets the full, foot in the back treatment, which is just a completely different style of law enforcement.
This whole thing, my buddy Ross Broccoli made a movie about, it was now, I guess, almost 15 years ago. I don't know if he even actually ever finished it or he did, but it was basically about a guy from the Justice Department who got the job because his dad was a former FBI hero. And he was sent out to Nebraska to follow some other guy who was half building houses on other people's land. And he would just go in, he would promise everybody that they would get paid. He would pick a piece of land that he knew that the owner was sort of absentee. They'd build half a house. The owner would show up and say, what's going on here? He would leave town, never making any money. The owner of the land would go, wow, this is a half-built house. I've got a half-built house here. I'm just going to build the rest of it and sell it in this real estate boom. And no one cared. Everybody got paid. Nobody cared. And the only person who was sort of out of it was this investigator who was just sort of feeling bad for himself. And I just wonder how this ends, because unfortunately in Broccoli's movie it turned out that it was just aliens who were really in favor of getting rid of cornfields in Nebraska that were behind all of this. So I don't know how this ends, but I mean, is there enough sort of like, broad-based? I mean, is there? It just seems like this is the system it goes into the black box. It's all rigged, but as long as nobody really sort of decides that's problematic, everybody's just sort of going to get paid off, or they're going to lose. It's just whatever. You don't know how much it costs to fix your sink if you're not a plumber.
Right.
And
Right.
I mean, how does this end? I mean, we just lose all. We just slowly push out anybody in the Justice Department who cares about this stuff. I mean, what happens?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think one of the problems is that the public just generally they don't realize what a radical idea collateral consequences is, because we've just never had a system before where law enforcement says some people can't be prosecuted because they're too important, and other people, which automatically means, of course, that there are other people who are unimportant enough to be prosecuted. So we've created this kind of national sorting system where we're dividing people up into categories, and unless people recognize how crazy that is, and there are some people in the government who are worried about it. There are senators who are worried about it, but I just think that it's kind of a key moment, because if these settlements stand and this doctrine, this collateral consequences doctrine, continues to sort of function this way, then it's going to become institutionalized. It already has sort of become institutionalized. Even when people like you and me think about it, we don't think about people who work in these companies as being the kind of people who would go to Rikers Island or Soledad Prison in California. We just think of them as people who pay settlements, and
Right.
And that's sort of logic. That view of these people is becoming part of our consciousness, and that's what's kind of messed up, I think.
Totally. As always, Matt, very uplifting to talk to you. But it's a great piece. Folks should check it out. I want to see. I imagine you're working on your next book, but I want to see one about these collateral, this doctrine of collateral consequence, and also the impact it's having on people who are working in this business. I mean, it's just it's fascinating. I mean, over the past couple of months, I met one guy. I met one guy recently who got hired by a major bank that is being investigated to basically to do all their internal investigations, or part of that, to collect. And it's just like a booming business. And it's basically they just find out what they have done wrong, or how exposed they are, how much exposure within the company there is to what they've done wrong.
Right.
And that's just a job for this guy. And then I know another guy who just went from, who basically was working for the Justice Department and is going to be dealing with sort of how you manage, sort of becoming a defense attorney for this stuff. And it's just become part of the machine. It's just all part of the same dance in some way.
Right. That to me is the scariest part about it, is that what they've really done is they've created kind of an efficient system for dealing with wrongdoing at these companies. And the efficiency works on all sides.
Yeah.
It works for the regulators. It works for the companies. It's, let's figure out what we did wrong. Let's talk about it, and let's come up with a number that everybody can live with, and let's just move on and do it again.
It's basically just like the digestive system, right? I mean, we eat something, and then we poop it out, and we just do it day after day. And it's
right. Right. It's a digestive system for fraud and crime. That's really what it is, and it's really messed up, definitely.
All right. Well, Matt, it was, as always, a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on and talking to me today.
All right, Sam. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, folks, there you have it. Oh, boy. Well, what did you expect? Everything is rigged.